This entire video, except for the product shots, is being shot entirely on the Insta360 Go 3. In this video, I'll give you 9 things that you should know about this tiny little action camera, as well as talk about who this camera is for. I've been using this camera for about a month now, and I've really enjoyed just the compact nature of it, and how it deviates so much from GoPro. I find that its little form factor has given me a whole different, unique perspective of how I want to film videos. But off the bat, you'll notice that the Go 3 looks a lot like a GoPro when it's inside of the Action Pod. Now the Action Pod is brand new, it did not exist for the Go 2, but the Action Pod serves several different functions. First of all, it has a 2.2-inch flip-up screen, which is also a touch screen, and you can use it to monitor your shot as you're filming, preview your shots after you've shot them, and control the settings of the camera. Now the actual Insta360 Go 3 camera can live inside of that Action Pod. You can use it, directly as is, or you can pop it out and use the camera all by itself. And to me, that's the most fun way to use this camera. The Go 3 is about the size of my thumb, and it is easily the smallest camera that I've ever used. It's actually, a little bit heavier than the Go 2. The Go 2 is about 10 grams lighter, but this is still a super small camera. It is very discreet. Most people won't even know that you're filming with it. And it's really nice because it's magnetic. So you can stick this camera to a metal surface, and that really inspires different filming perspectives. I had so much fun playing with this camera just because it was magnetic, and I could stick it on all kinds of surfaces, and it really inspired my creativity. I especially love using the included pendant and the hat mount, both of which are magnetic, but it makes it so easy to turn this camera into a POV camera, which is actually quite hard to do with other cameras. Like GoPros and action cameras, you can turn them into a head mount or a chest mount, but they require rather bulky accessories compared to the accessories that you would use with the Go 3. Now, speaking of magnets, the Action Pod itself also has a magnetic base, but it's only compatible with the Insta360 Go accessories. So it does come with a little ball head with a 1/4-20 screw on the bottom, so you can use it with any compatible tripods or hand grips like I'm using right now. Now, one thing to note about the Insta360 Go 3 is that despite its name, this is not a 360 camera, but it does have 2.7K resolution, which is up from 1440p, which is what you would find on the previous Go 2 camera. It also has an 11.2mm f2 lens, so it's an ultra-wide focal length, and you can actually choose from 4 different focal lengths or FOVs on this camera. There's ultra-wide, action, and linear, all of which stop down from that original ultra-wide FOV. There's also a brand new free frame mode, which is only available in 1440p, but it's pretty cool because it lets you reframe or pick your aspect ratio in post-production. Now, besides video and free frame video mode, this camera can also shoot time-lapse, time shift, slow-mo, loop recording, star-lapse, interval photo, HDR photo, and regular photo. So it's got tons of shooting modes in the camera, but in my opinion, its greatest strength is shooting video. When shooting in video mode, this camera also has 3 different forms of stabilization that you can choose from, which is pretty key for an action camera. But one thing to note is that if you choose the maximum forms of stabilization, the preview delay progressively gets longer. And so that's important to know because if you detach the Go 3 camera from the Action Pod actually becomes a remote control, and you can use it as a monitor to see what the camera is seeing, as well as control the settings. But again, that preview delay does start to kick in as you choose higher forms of stabilization. The Action Pod also acts as a battery charger for the Go 3. So the Go 3 camera by itself has about a 45-minute battery life, which is an increase of about 10 minutes compared to the original Go 2. But if you stick that camera inside of the Action Pod, it can actually charge the camera, and you can get a total of a 170-minute battery life. Just note that the batteries are built into the camera units, and so you can't replace them. So once you run out of battery, you have to stop and recharge. When it comes to audio quality, the Go 3 has 2 built-in microphones, which is an increase compared to the Go 2, which only had 1 built-in microphone. And you can also change the audio settings to enable wind reduction, which is what I'm using right now. You can also enable stereo recording, and you can choose the directional focus. Now, in my opinion, the built-in mics on this camera actually make the audio quality sound pretty good. But you've been hearing the audio quality throughout this entire video, so you guys let me know in the comments below what you think so far. But one downside to this camera is that you cannot connect an external microphone. There's no way to do it, there's no audio adapter out there, so you're kind of stuck with just the built-in microphones. One of the last things to know about this camera is that it is waterproof up to 5 meters underwater, which is 1 meter more than the Go 2, but the Action Pod itself is only water resistant, so you can't submerge the Action Pod into the water. And the final thing to know about the Insta360 Go 3 is that it comes with built-in storage. Now that's a double-edged sword because it's really convenient to just power this camera up and start recording. You don't have to spend any extra money getting a memory card. However, when that internal storage is full, you can't, pop out the memory card and stick a new one inside. You're really limited to the built-in onboard storage. Another thing to note is that the price of this camera really fluctuates depending on the amount of built-in storage that you choose to get. So the least amount, 32 gigs, will run you about $379 US, while the most, 128 gigs, will run you about $429 US. So this camera is now price-wise on par with the GoPro and the DJI Osmo Action 4. So with all that said, who exactly is the Insta360 Go 3 camera for? Well, throughout the past month that I've had it, I've mainly been using it to film casual family adventures. And so I've found that the 64 gig internal storage has been just the right amount, and that 45-minute battery life has also been really great. So for using it casually, I think it's the perfect little camera. But if you are a professional, then I do think it's hard to think of this as a primary camera, mainly because of that limitation of not being able to add your own memory and also not being able to replace the battery. So if you are going to use it professionally, I do think that it's a great complementary camera to another camera that you're already using. And I think it's especially good for both casual users and professional users for getting those POV shots. Like, that is so hard to do with a bigger camera. I know that GoPros can do them, but again, you have to wear like the GoPro bra in order to do that, and so it just takes a lot more time to actually set up the POV. With the Go 3, it is so much easier to get those POV shots just by using the included pendants or the little hat clip, and so that's one thing that I've really been taking advantage of with this camera a lot. So perhaps you've been in a creative rut using the same camera over and over, and you just don't know what else to film, then getting a camera like this can be really great for your creativity. Can you use the Go 3 to replace a regular action camera? I would say that it really depends on what kind of action that you're actually shooting with that camera. I do think the magnetic attachment is decently strong, but definitely not as strong as the DJI Osmo Action 4, for example, and definitely not as strong as the GoPro fingers. So if you need a super secure attachment, I would say that this camera isn't really it. But again, if you're filming casually, just in the water, swimming around with your family, and not doing anything too hardcore, then I do think that this is a pretty great action camera for the casual user. But you guys let me know what you think in the comments below. You have seen and heard video clips directly from this camera, unedited, so you guys can let me know what you think of the quality, and if you would spend almost $400 on this camera. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching, and remember, when in doubt, just shoot it.